to this week's episode on life in private staffing. Hope you're all well. Unbeknown to probably a lot of you, this is actually my first podcast I've recorded for months, because we've been releasing podcasts every 2 weeks still, but obviously, as you know, I had a baby 8 weeks ago, so the last 2 or 3 months of podcasts we pre-recorded. So it's really nice to be back in the driver's seat, recording. We literally this will go out in 2 weeks, so recording, you know, fairly live again. And we've got a really interesting episode today, doing something a bit different. Rather than talking to anyone that's sort of working within the households themselves, I've got the lovely Elaine from Elaine Placements on today, who runs a very...
Hi, Philippa.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. Congratulations on the birth of your daughter.
Thank you.
I can't believe you're already back at work.
Oh, well, I look terrible. I'm very sleep deprived, but it's really nice to be back and doing normal things again and doing a bit of work. So, no, it's great. And I was just saying, yeah, so Elaine Placements have been going around for a while now, and Lane's very successful and prominent here in the UK. And it's just so nice to be talking openly with other recruiters. So many recruiters, not even in our sector alone, but across many sectors, so many recruiters are so secretive and private and worry about other recruiters nicking client. I don't know, all a bit too aggressive and competitive for me. I feel that those agencies that collaborate and talk to each other and work together are the ones that do really well. So I, especially being a small agency like you, small in the sense that we haven't got 50 people, large in the present sense,
sure.
But, you know, us independents out there, I think it's really nice for us to be working together, and we've worked together on roles before, haven't we?
Yeah, no, we have. I was just thinking of how I met you, and obviously it was through your brother, Russell. He came in and he mentioned the name of your company, and I'd heard of it. You know, we all know of each other, and he obviously told me a lot about you, how you started your company. I remember him telling me, I think you just had your son.
Yeah.
Your eldest is a boy, isn't he? And then he connected us, didn't he? And we did some work together. But I mean, Elaine Placements we're 10 years old nearly. Well, in a couple of weeks actually. And I think, you know, as time goes by, you've been working in the industry more and more. You realise what's so great about working in recruitment, and that is, and we've spoken about this before, is obviously the people you meet, the clients you work with, the candidates you work with, and you know, there's always, as you know, with recruitment, you know, it's often extreme highs, extreme lows, but it's, you know, whatever you're doing, you always have to keep. I always say to anyone in my office who's maybe had a couple of bad weeks, or you know, things have been slow, that, you know, to keep going, and things always keep moving. We're always all getting new clients, always making placements. But yeah, I love talking to all my friends who are in agencies. I've got friends in the US, I've got a friend in Australia, quite a couple of friends kind of in regional UK. You obviously, and then obviously other mutual friends we have, like Izzy, who owns Cora. But yeah, we've all keeps us going, talking to each other.
Definitely, we kind of need that outlet, because like you say, I don't think nobody sort of sees our side of things, and candidates, I think, can very easily get frustrated with recruiters, because ultimately, you know, we are the middlemen between them and their sort of job. So I can see why people are frustrated, but we have so many frustrations of our own. You know, we, like you say, we have our high days, which are great, but our low days, it's nice to work and talk to other recruiters to sort of share those highs and lows with, because we kind of all get it. And the thing is, whilst we all do the same thing, and there probably is crossover with some clients, but ultimately most agencies have their own little niche anyway. So a lot of the areas that you service heavily, we have little to do with. A lot of areas that we service heavily, you have little to do with. So actually, like, while there's competition there, it's not like head to head all the time, you know.
No.
You know, we're doing different things, and it's just nice to have someone to call on a Saturday night.
No, not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's like any business. You know, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you work in recruitment, you own a shop, you work in marketing, it's about focusing on what you do. And obviously you can always look at the competition, and I'm sure you do, we all do, especially over the last year. I've spent a lot of time speaking with you, and I've spoken to other agencies, because just asking them what the market's been like. Because obviously for all companies throughout the pandemic, and with COVID, you know, it's been ups and downs. You know, when we had the first lockdown, everything went dead. At that point, actually, we were quite busy. And it's funny because I have some other friends who had companies who were really, really quiet at that point. And then at the end of last year, you know, that same person who I was talking to, who was dead at the beginning of the first lockdown, was actually quite busy, and we were quiet. And I mean, I have a friend who owns a nanny agency, and he was telling me, you know, they had a record April, which again, I love to hear, because, you know, if they're busy, the whole market's picked up, because they're one of the biggest recruitment companies within the domestic market. So it's always good hearing how other people are doing. And of course, you know, you have exactly the same attitude as I do, that, you know, it's a big market. I think a lot of people don't realize how huge the domestic market is for nannies, housekeepers, and then obviously you know, it's a smaller market for drivers and butlers and other household staff, but you know, it's a big market, and there's plenty of business out there for everyone. And I've certainly, I'm sure you have as well, seen lots of, I mean, I've seen some candidates of mine who I've worked with start their own agencies in the last couple of years. And it's always nice to see, you know, people start their own companies and see how they're getting on. And, you know, I always try and help people when they're starting out with their own businesses, because I've, you know, had so many people help me. I'm always, I mean, I still do call people who own agencies. You know, I've rang you, I'm sure, a couple of times when you're wanting to get advice. And yeah, it's really nice. When you own a small business, it can be quite lonely, because you spend a lot of time, obviously, with your team, but it's not a huge amount of people. So it's always great speaking to people and just, yeah, supporting one another, especially over the last, I mean, year and a half, which has been, you know, wild for any person who owns their own small business.
How were you affected during the pandemic then? Because from a personal point of view, were you homeschooling kids as well as running a company, or?
I mean, obviously, as you know, I'm divorced and I've got 2 kids, and both my kids are at quite demanding prep schools in central London. So when the pandemic hit, we were quiet for about 2 weeks, and then we became quite busy because a lot of my clients wanted to hire teachers. There was a huge amount of uncertainty about whether people could have staff in the house or they couldn't, and it was quite, the government guidelines were a little bit blurred, and then after a couple of weeks it became clear, having got sort of advice that people, you know, nannies could be at work, especially with clients. I have bankers, you know, had workers who needed staff. I think what I saw was, what I saw was, you know, just so much change on a weekly basis. And a lot of my clients in the first lockdown, they didn't travel abroad. So we were really, really busy. And then last summer, a lot of people did go away. So we were quiet then. In other and we have a lot of clients who are tech, and other work, you know, tech, money from tech. And these are the kind of people who, you know, if they've got kids and they've got kids and they're at school, they go away for every school holiday. But overall, we worked really hard last year. We didn't actually lose any revenue in the company, but we worked really hard. And personally, from a point of view, because I had to homeschool my kids myself, I was getting up at 5 a.m, working until 9 o'clock, fitting breakfast in, homeschooling the kids, taking the kids out, and then working kind of 7 to 11 o'clock. which I think, that's not just me, it's a lot of mums and dads who had children they're homeschooling, who were just working, basically doing their normal 40-hour week, 50-hour week, and on top of that doing 25 hours of homeschooling.
It's so crazy, isn't it? Like, and for such a long time as well. But that's interesting about how where you guys were as an agency in terms of busyness or not. And I know that those agencies that could provide tutors and nannies and stuff definitely had the inquiries. We were definitely the type of agency that went very quiet at the beginning and then sort of picked up throughout the course of the year. I suppose we were quite quiet because we do a lot of private households, but also villas and chalets. So we often recruit for a client who generally moves around their properties a lot and they need staff on all their properties. But because they weren't moving around, they were staying in one property, they didn't have those requirements. And so they would just have all of their staff in one home. They didn't need anything for their chalet. They didn't need anyone for their villa. They didn't need anyone for their yacht. So we were fairly quiet. And I think also as well, a lot of the roles that we often get aren't often sort of brand newly created roles. They're often roles where they've become vacant because someone's moved on. But obviously, as you know, the candidate market was very still last year and candidates just weren't moving around, were they? Because why would you leave a job that was secure? So therefore, we didn't get many of those roles come in that became available because a candidate had left. So so we were ever so quiet, and then over the course of the year things picked up, and then this year things have really picked up. How are you?
You've been manic.
Yeah, manic. How have you found things like now? Are you guys busy? Are you back to, would you say the market's back to normal now from your point of view? Or
I mean, from my point of view, I think when lockdown ended in, was it March or April? I can't even think. But when the last lockdown ended, I feel as though we had a huge amount of inquiries and a lot of people wanting to hire, because for instance, a lot of my clients had candidates who'd been working crazy hours, they'd been traveling with the client, and these candidates just wanted a break and wanted to leave. Or we had clients who had a skeleton staff in place and then they were expanding the team, or clients who'd made people redundant when the pandemic hit and they were back in London. We knew the vaccine was coming, people were much more confident to hire, and things picked up. But from our point of view, we had, in the last 2-3 months, we've had a huge amount of inquiries, but at the beginning, a lot of it was, there was still a lot of uncertainty with clients about hiring. And I think we've actually had a great last few months, but it's been difficult. And I think, again, I don't know how you feel, but there is still uncertainty in the market. And we are, like, now we're really, really busy. We tend to quieten down in July when people go away. So private schools break up this Friday. But we've got a lot of clients who aren't traveling because, for example, they've got a nanny who's not vaccinated. They're waiting for them to be vaccinated to travel. Or one of mum and dad has only had one of their Pfizer shots. They're waiting for a second. So those clients who would normally be away, they're still here, and they might be hiring for September, and they're still hiring now. So we are still busy. But overall, this year's been, it's been good. I can't complain. I think if it wasn't for COVID, I would have seen more movement. We probably, as a company, would have hired more and expanded. But I've wanted to keep the team that I've had in case there's been another lockdown and then people have had to work from home. So they're people who they're people who know the business, and they know what their roles are. But I definitely think, as a company, we're looking to make a lot of hires in September, because I think then with the vaccine in place, things should, fingers crossed, when I say be back to normal, things should be working and people will be vaccinated, and hopefully we're not going to have another lockdown. Praying, because I can't face any more homeschooling.
Oh, fair. I was going to ask, actually, this is a bit of like a sensitive subject, I think, with a lot of people online. So are you finding yet that clients are insisting that only vaccinated candidates are put forward for interview? Have you had much of that yet?
I've certainly had clients asking if they can hire people who are vaccinated. And obviously, if you only put candidates forward who are vaccinated, then that you can't do that because it's discriminatory. But we have.
Go on.
But we are being asked that. But it's not something we put on CVs. And obviously, there's people. I was with a nanny who I've known for a long time last week, and she actually had a stroke about 4 years ago, and she's not allowed to be vaccinated. So as an example, we're still putting her forward for jobs, and I've got families as well who they're not vaccinated and they don't want to be vaccinated, and they're against being vaccinated. And I've obviously got clients who they wanted to get vaccinated as soon as possible. But as an agency, we take equality really seriously. So we are being asked, but we are putting candidates forward based on whether they're right for the roles and whether they're suitable. I think it's more about with the vaccinations, it's about whether people can travel. So you can say to someone, are you able to travel to France without restrictions? That's allowed. Because at the moment, for example, if you've had your vaccine, both your vaccines, and you've waited 2 weeks, you can travel in and out of France. That's right, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So you can say to someone, can you travel to France without restrictions, largely like having a passport. You can't say, have you been vaccinated?
No, I agree with you, and it's not something yet that I don't think anyone can make mandatory, because you can't enforce something like that.
No.
It becomes too discriminatory. But I'm seeing it across, not even just our sector, like I'm seeing it across other sectors, where I think Pimlico plumbers were the first people to publicly say that anybody that's not willing to have the vaccine are not going to have the contract renewed, because they're putting plumbers into people's homes, and they're at the forefront of, and they're a massive company, they've got thousands of staff, they're at the forefront of introducing no vaccine, no employment, basically. And I just think it's such a bold move. And their argument is, if you don't like it, don't come work for us. There are a million plumbing companies you can work for. So that's what they're doing. And ours is funny, our industry, because we're not getting involved either, in the sense of taking a side, because I think everybody has the choice of whether they be vaccinated or not. But I do completely see that obviously the principal and the family, they can choose who they let into their home and who they don't let into their home from a personal point of view.
Sure.
So I just think we've not been asked about it much yet, to be fair. It's not a problem for us at the minute. It's not becoming a requirement as of yet, but I do think that it will become part of the reason for selection on the principal's behalf. If we put forward a range of candidates, all with great experience, vaccine or not, it's out of our hands who they select, and I can imagine it will become a factor further down the line, but we'll have to wait and see, really. And because it's just that I think it's like anything when it comes to, for example, employment law. I haven't read, because I read a lot of I read a lot obviously about employment laws and how they change, because when we have contracts, they when the pension changes, you have to put clauses in. I think there's not enough information out there for anyone, employers, recruiters, when it comes to what's allowed, what's not allowed, what you can ask, what you cannot ask. It's the same. I get clients ask me all the time to send photographs of candidates with their CVs, and obviously we don't do that. And sometimes we have clients who they don't want to work with us because we don't send we won't send photographs, or we get and again, but for example, if someone asks in the Middle East for a photograph, and you obviously work in the Middle East and you've got an office in Dubai, you can ask over there if someone's married, you can ask for their photograph, you can ask for their height, you can ask for their weight. It's not discriminatory. But for us, I think as an agency and everyone who works for me, we obviously, and as I know you got Silver Swan do as well, operate within the rules of the UK employment
laws. But yeah, the vaccinations, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen. And yeah, as I said, as an example, the lady that I saw last week who can't be vaccinated because she had a stroke, you know, it wouldn't be, in so many ways, you know, it wouldn't be fair on her to be discriminated against. And I mean, I don't know if what we do is we ask all candidates who go and interview with families. We say to them, you know, are they happy to take, you know, a rapid COVID test? And I got invited actually to a party by a client today, and on the invitation it says that they're going to rapid COVID test people on arrival.
I get it.
So yeah, it's a changing world, Philippa.
Isn't it? It's such a changing world. We'll have to sort of wait and see. But
see what happens.
I'm glad at the moment that, you know, it's not becoming a sort of big deal in our sector. I know a lot of offices as well, all the staff have to do tests like twice a week just to sort of go to work. So maybe testing will be used rather than sort of vaccine as a
yeah. I mean, I've got staff who are being tested. They test every morning before they go to work.
Yeah.
And I think often you hear about people who have got, I know some people who've been vaccinated and they've got COVID, but when you're vaccinated and you've got COVID, often you don't have any symptoms at all. Have you had COVID? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah, I've had it twice.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah, I got it way back way back at the end of February, I think. I was in hospital, not with COVID, with something else. And I think I picked it up then. And then I had it again. And then I had it again this year. So
yeah.
But again, when I had it last year, I didn't have any of the symptoms that were on the NHS. So the loss of taste in your mouth, that wasn't a symptom. They're like, it wasn't, if you couldn't taste something back in February, they weren't like, oh, you've got COVID, stay at home. They hadn't. So I was I was out and about. I didn't have any symptoms except I couldn't really taste food very well. And I was out shopping in London because it wasn't a symptom. I mean, in hindsight, that seems crazy, but
you weren't to know.
No, I wasn't to know. And I spoke to the doctor. They're like, nope, that's not a COVID symptom. You don't need to stay at home.
My friend, a friend of mine, she was due to have a baby in like 2 weeks' time. So she was obviously mega heavily pregnant, and she had the worst cold ever. She had no COVID symptoms in the sense of like the coughs and the breathing or anything. She was full of cold. And she actually went to the doctors, and instead of testing or anything, they prescribed her antibiotics for what do you call it? Sinusitis. Basically, so the doctor prescribed her antibiotics for that. She went home to the antibiotics, and then it wasn't until they took her COVID test before they induced her that she found out she had COVID. So literally heavily pregnant with COVID. The doctor didn't even diagnose it. The doctor prescribed her antibiotics for something else. So for doctors not to know, then us walking the streets aren't to know either. So then she was in hospital having a baby whilst having COVID. Nightmare. But
wow. I mean, I was thinking the other day about how difficult it was to get COVID tests last year. And I had so many clients ringing me up asking me, do you know where we can get COVID tests, where we can send our staff? And do you remember at one point COVID tests were being sold? You know, in the very early days, the rapid COVID tests were being sold like one for like £300. Obviously now you're at the tube station and people are throwing them at you.
It's crazy.
But no, I do think a lot of our house managers, butlers, nannies, they've definitely become health and safety and health experts over the last year, year and couple of months. And some of the stories I've heard, as you probably have, about the level of cleanliness. I've had clients who, they've been using companies to come in when they were isolating the house and having additional gates put in, having security so people wouldn't go in because they built themselves a fortress so nobody could go in and give them COVID. I've had clients who've rented homes next to their houses, so when staff come back from being on leave, they can isolate for 2 weeks. Then they've had, you know, doctors, well, not doctors, companies going in and doing PCRs on them. Yeah, it's crazy the last how the, you know, the last few months have been for people. Not the last few months, the last year. And especially you know, I think a lot of private staff have worked so hard, especially you know, having clients who normally aren't in residency all the time, and then, you know, clients who are always away, they're out for dinner every night, and, you know, you're not anymore, and you're, you know, so many staff, as I'm sure you know, who've just worked so hard, and whilst everyone's at home, you know, working from home, in our industry, everyone's working 2-3 times harder. I was talking to my team actually last week, and I definitely, one of the things I think that the pandemic has changed is people's perception on how much they want to work as well. And I think a lot of candidates we're speaking to, they are coming in, or they're leaving roles, or they're in roles and they want a new role, and they want a role that's got more work-life balance. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, getting people, are you finding it harder to get people to go and work in the Middle East?
Well, we're finding it harder than we did this time last year, because this time last year people didn't have any other options, so it was great because they had our option, but they were like, I don't know, people based in Europe, they knew that hotels and restaurants weren't going to open anytime soon, so they knew that this was an option that was a good one. This year it's hard, just in the sense that there are a lot more opportunities available now, in the sense that people are recruiting again and hotels are opening up again, etc. So now, unfortunately for us, they have other options against the Middle East option. So we might, so the conversation rate is affected there. But yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of people's attitude to work. Whereas before the pandemic, it was work, and now people are like, you know what, having stopped for a minute and taken a bit more time to myself and not been social all the time, and it's actually been really good for my mental health, it's been good for my family, and I don't want to go back to that again. And actually, even from my point of view, not from a work point of view, from a social point of view, I've sort of thought, you know what, like, I actually don't want to go back to having every single weekend back to back with plans, social plans. I actually quite like having weekends with no plans. So I'm really trying hard as I come out of the pandemic, and also now I can drink again and stuff, and, you know, baby's born and all the rest. I'm really trying hard not to fill my diary as heavily as I did before, because I want more time. And I think the same with work. I realise that, you know, you can still have a successful career and get a lot of work done in fewer hours, and find more effective ways of doing things. I know quite a lot of recruitment companies now that are condensing their week to a 4-day work week and having a 3-day weekend. With the same amount of, for the staff, for the recruiters, they've still got KPIs, they've still got revenue targets, they've still got a 5-day week worth of work to do, but they're condensing it and doing, you know, 10, 11, 12-hour days across 4 days, having a 3-day weekend. So yeah, people are definitely shifting the way they work to, you know, just to this new life that we're in. And yes, maybe private households are going to sort of do similar, where they can't be expecting staff to be working 6.5 days a week, because they've... No, I mean, we don't take roles on our books. If they're UK based, if it's a UK based role and it's over 5 days a week, we don't take the role on unless the client is paying a huge premium. And even when they are, we say to a client, you're going to hire someone on a 6-day week. You know, I've been placing staff for a decade. People will not stay in this role for over 12 months. So if you're happy with that, so we still place maternity nurses who work 24 hours, 6 days a week. And often we'll place someone for 12 weeks and they'll want them to stay for longer. And again, we have candidates who we place in 5-day a week roles, and they're on a salary, you know, 50, 60, 70,000, and it's in their contract that if they work an additional day, they're paid overtime. So there's that incentive, but they don't have to. But, you know, I don't have people come into my office saying, or, you know, not that people are really coming to our office at the moment, we're Zooming them and saying to us, we want to work a 6-day week. One of the questions actually I wanted to ask you, actually there's a few, Philippa. So
so obviously before the pandemic, you obviously had it coming in and meeting you in the office, and then you interview obviously similar to us. We have overseas roles, and we've interviewed them on Zoom. We used to obviously use Skype. Are you meeting people again, or are you still working on Zoom or combination? Because we have had some people, I've obviously been meeting people again in person.
Yeah.
And I don't always meet people in the office, especially if I'm reconnecting with candidates I've known for a long time. And I'm catching up with them. I might go and have a coffee with them or a glass of wine even. But we are, we're sort of 85% of candidates we're Zooming, and then probably 15% we're meeting in person. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'd say that was probably quite similar. So yeah, just sort of explain to people. So Elaine actually messaged me the other day after seeing one of our podcasts and said, you know what, no one interviews you, like no one actually knows you very well, you know the people. She said, why don't I come on and we have a chat, and then I can ask you some questions that people might want to know. So as we're nearing the end of the podcast anyway, we can spend the last 10 minutes and you can fire away and you can ask me some questions, and then people can sort of see my thoughts on stuff. But yeah, we're probably similar. So working in recruitment, as you touched on earlier, is very much a people place. We do it because we like talking to people, and it's been really odd as an agency to be so removed from the face-to-face conversations and the face-to-face meetings. But yeah, we're slowly but surely getting back to it. I met with a client a couple of weeks ago. I'm meeting another client this week. Candidates, we've had candidates come into the office. Basically, people that are wanting and willing to meet us, we are biting their end off, meeting them straight away because we're desperate to get back.
Sure.
But it's still slow, and also as well, you can get a lot more done not doing everything in person. So we're trying to sort of balance
it's a balance. It's a balance
of our time to be like, we don't have to meet everybody anymore. Actually, let's meet, but let's try and sort of manage it. But we're probably similar, 80-20% maybe. A lot of our candidates, especially Middle East, are international candidates anyway, so they're always remote. It's just sort of UK London stuff, and it's the client side of things that we're really sort of pushing for to sort of meet. And we're looking to do an event soon as well, as soon as we can, with some senior staff members. That'd be really cool. And people seem quite comfortable now, and people seem quite keen, don't they, to get back to someone.
Yeah, I think people who are vaccinated, they are. So I'm going to interview you now, Philippa.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
So I'm interested, I think I know, but for everyone listening, when did you start Silver Swan?
Okay, so I started Silver Swan 8 years ago, and I started it just me, and I started it initially catering just the luxury chalet market. So my background, like before that, so like most people fall into recruitment, like I fell into recruitment.
Everyone does.
Not many people sits there in primary school and talks about wanting to be a recruitment consultant one day. You want to be an astronaut or whatever back in the day. But I basically, what did I do? I went to uni in business management. Not really because I planned to have a business. I honestly, it sounds bad, but I just picked my easiest A level. I just went to college. I wanted to go to university. I wanted to get the best grade with the minimum effort. So I picked the A level that I got the highest grade, the least effort. So I picked my easiest A level, which was business. Did business, and did a ski season after uni, which was sort of got me into the industry. So did a ski season, and then got back, went into a recruitment agency called Office Angels in London, and the plan was to go into Office Angels.
Big player.
Yeah, the plan was to go into Office Angels to secure a temp job until through them doing whatever, whilst I figured out what I want to do with my life. So I imagined that I'd end up sat in reception somewhere for someone doing something. And they actually said, we're looking for an administrator within our branch here at London Bridge. Do you want to do that? And that's how I sort of got into recruitment. And I absolutely loved it from day one. Even when I was an administrator, one of my big jobs on a Friday was stuffing timesheets, because we used to do payroll, and even the most basic admin jobs was just like one of my favourite things. And then I moved from an administrator to a consultant at Office Angels and learned everything I know from a recruiter point of view there.
Who would you say has been your biggest mentor as a recruitment consultant?
I don't think he listens to the podcast, but it was one of my managers at Office Angels called Andrew. He actually is now very senior head of Adecco. He literally taught me everything I knew. And I think what helps with anybody in work, and I always say this, with your first job in the private sector, first job in recruitment, you will either love it and you'll do it forever, or you'll hate it and you'll never do it again. And people with recruitment, either do recruitment for a day or two and hate it, or do it forever. And it all depends on the people that you
I agree.
And I just absolutely so much respect for my manager. We had such a laugh. I learned loads. And so he was just, if I'd have had a different manager, I may have never have continued recruitment, you know.
Sure.
And go on.
Sorry, next question, because we don't have that much longer. How would you say, as a CEO, you've changed the most from when you started your company 8 years ago to now?
Oh God,
difficult.
But probably I've learned to let go and let other people do things for me. So at the beginning,
that's not easy.
Oh my God. At the beginning, I did everything, obviously. And then as I started to get staff in, I was an absolute micromanager and didn't think anyone could do it as well as me. And actually, you can't grow as a person or grow as a company if you insist on doing everything. You need to trust other people. And actually, it was falling pregnant for the first time that actually made my career what it is today, because if I hadn't have got pregnant, I'd still be doing everything. And actually, this whole thing about can you have a family and a career and all the rest, it is a juggle. But if I hadn't started a family, I wouldn't have a successful recruitment agency, because I'd still be doing it myself. It forced me to let other people do things, and therefore I can focus my efforts on other things. So yeah, stepping back and letting other people grow within the company is probably the biggest thing that I've had to do.
I mean, I definitely think actually one of the things about working in the domestic market, it's a very female driven industry, in the sense, not the people who work in it, because I mean, obviously I have a mix of men and women working for me, as do you. But often when we're speaking with clients, it's women that we work with, not men, which I love. And if you look at a lot of the CEOs as well across our industry, a lot of them are women as well. I mean, of course, there's men as well, which, I'm just thinking who some of the bigger companies are within our industry, and they are all women, which I really like. I'm trying to think of my next question. I think obviously for you and me, we're both mums, and it's something that we're always comparing notes on work-life balance. So how do you find being a CEO of a company and juggling your family life? Because obviously, I know you do an amazing job in both of your roles, but how do you juggle being a mum and being a CEO? Like, what's your diary look like?
You know what, it is really hard. Before the newborn came along, I would have said it's really manageable, providing you have a team that you trust at work and you have help at home you can trust. So if you are happy, because some mums struggle because they don't like other people caring for their children, and so they can't sort of split their time fairly. I am very happy leaving my kids. In fact, I am probably at my happiest when I'm leaving my kids. But I think
I have to say I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. When I see my nanny, or I have someone come in at the weekend and come and entertain the kids, I'm certainly look forward to having some time to myself, or being able to it's good when you've got a company. When you're being a mum, it's great to be a mum and be 100%. I think for me, I try really hard when I'm with the kids to be 100% present, and when I'm at work to be 100% present. But as I'm sure my kids would tell you, and my office would tell me, I do not succeed at that all the time. But it's
before the newborn came, Freddie was like 2 and he was in full-time childcare. So when your kids are in full-time childcare or full-time school, it's easier, because you like I say, there is always blurred, but you have got chunks of your day where you can work and chunks of your day when you can be mum, and it is manageable. As I say, good childcare, good team at work. However, I've got an 8-week-old, and it is a juggle at the minute because there's nobody at work covering me. Obviously, I've got people I delegate stuff to, but it is a struggle at the minute because the newborn needs me a lot. And also like night times,
of course,
lack of sleep, like my toddler's now getting up in the night, and I was up with him in the night and her in the night. And
oh wow.
So it is tricky. All I keep telling myself is it's soon wine time. So soon at the end of the day I can have a glass of wine, that really helps. But also as well, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to really not rush it in terms of getting, like, from the kids' point of view. So I so often think, oh my God, I can't wait till my kids are older and I can just work and it's not so difficult. It's difficult, but I'm trying to also really enjoy this baby stage at the same time. And
sure, yeah, enjoy it.
I just
Definitely
enjoy
do.
it goes so quickly. I just use my evenings. I'll put the kids to bed. I'll work in the evenings. Like, it is, this just splitting mum and CEO is manageable unless you've got a newborn. And when you've got a newborn, you've just got to get through each day. So I'm just getting through each day. I'm getting through each week. I'm trying to enjoy it, and roll on when she's a bit older and I can have full-time childcare for both kids. Then the balance is okay again.
Yeah, but I think it's nice. So we both, I mean, obviously I've had a lot of help with my kids. My daughter's, Cleo's 10 and a half nearly. And then my son's 5. So they are, they're not waking me up in the middle of the night, but their homework's quite demanding at the weekends. And obviously now, with your kids, you put them to bed at 7 o'clock. My daughter's awake till 9 o'clock at night. And when she's awake, she wants to chat to me. Whereas I used to be able to put them to bed at 7 and work.
Yeah.
So as I get older, you think, don't want to freak you out, but you think, it's going to be a certain way. But I think the demand, I mean, the tiredness definitely decreases, but I think the demand pretty much stays.
It's just different.
Stays the same. But it's a sleep. For me, I cannot deal with being sleep deprived. No, I need 8 or 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So I really, hope your kids sleep. They're good sleepers, Philippa. They're good sleepers. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you, and I always find it such an interesting question to ask everyone in the industry, how do you think the domestic recruitment market in London and globally has changed since you've been working in it? I mean, obviously you've had your agency for 8 years, you've worked in it before, but how have you seen it change over the last 10 years?
Well, I think that one of the main changes I've seen is I think there's a much younger generation of ultra high net worths nowadays who I think look for a different approach to how their home is run. So when I first started in this industry, I was a bit sort of apprehensive about starting to do private household recruitment, because I was like, look, we're just a chalet recruiter. I was still like 25 to 27 at the time, didn't have any experience of the private household market. And I just assumed that the private household market would be, well, it is quite saturated with recruiters, but I would have thought that I would struggle to compete with the people that have been doing it forever and with the clients who want really formal staff and all, And so I was wondering about how I would fit into that. And actually what I found is over the years, I don't need to compete and try and get those big formal homes that like the formal staff and have a certain way of how they want their home runs. Actually, I found that there's a much younger generation of ultra high net worths, of people, younger families that don't want the traditional Downton Abbey style butlers. They actually want young, well-travelled, interesting candidates that have worked on some of the best super yachts, that have worked on some of the best chalets. And actually, I found when I'm presenting candidates to clients, and there are other agencies presenting candidates to clients, we've done quite well in the past because they've actually gone with the younger, it's not an age thing, but the candidates that have had a more varied background rather than someone that's done 25 years in the private sector. So actually, by seeing this shift in the industry, we've benefited a bit, because obviously our database is full. We do have a database of long-standing private household staff, but we also have a lot of people on database that have done lots of other things with their careers. They've worked in private aviation, they've worked on private yachts, they've worked in private chalets, and they're actually really placeable now in the private sector, those candidates, because of this younger generation of ultra high net worths.
Sure. And I definitely think it's interesting with what you're saying, and something that's great about Silver Swan. And again, us being a younger agency, again, I'm definitely someone who'll look at talent who might not necessarily have had 5 years of nanny experience. They might have worked as a teacher at a prep school in central London, and they've got an amazing qualification, and they've worked for a client who I know, and I worked with them for 1.5 years, and then they relocated. But I know they're a great candidate who I would put forward for a role. I think what's great about anyone, so definitely what you guys do, is you're helping bring talent into the industry, because as an industry, there's so much speculation about the privacy about working as domestic staff. How do you get into working into the domestic market? Because, you know, there's no graduate programs. I mean, I think there is one at Buckingham Palace actually, but that's one household in all the, you know, thousands and thousands there are in the world. But it's great when any company, recruitment company, brings new talent into the industry. And, you know, if you can, obviously we all have client requirements, and, you know, every single day I'm talking to candidates on the phone. I'm saying, look, we think you're a great client, a great candidate, but, you know, this client's got a particular requirement. They want someone who speaks French, or they want someone who's worked in a particular hotel to come and work for them. But, you know, it's great to bring new talent into the industry, and that's something you guys do really, really well.
It's also really nice having these opportunities. It's nice to have a client that is open to non-private household candidates, because it also gives the opportunity for people to get into the industry. Because historically, it's like yachting. Historically, you'd have like the formal private households that will not take anyone that hasn't already got private household experience. Now that is just not that's not healthy for the industry, because like you say, how do the newbies get into it?
You can't bring new talent in.
No, so it's really nice to have the clients that are open to that, because there are other ways their homes can be run. And these candidates, some of the candidates we put forward, have ran some of the most exclusive properties all around the world, but they might not be recognizable to some of the traditional private homes here, you know. So it's, you know, all hats off to those clients that are willing to give these candidates the opportunities, because they are going to benefit, because they're going to have these new fresh ideas. The level of service in their home, I think, is going to be elevated, and everybody wins. The candidate wins because they get these opportunities.
You know, I mean, for me, any company, you know, to run a great company, you need to have a diverse workforce, and I think that's the same in a private house. You know, I've got a client who's got 20 staff, it works really well having people who've come from lots of different sectors and can bring lots of different things to the industry. And, you know, I was speaking actually to an estate manager of mine the other day, and he hired someone from a 5-star hotel, and she's had 4 years of work experience, and he was saying, you know, she'd come in, she's given such great ideas. And he runs a huge estate, 60 private staff globally, and he's someone who you know, wants the right personality fit, the right attitude, and it's really lovely when you talk to people who you know, value their staff and value the input that people bring into the industry. But yeah, I'm sure you'll agree with me. There's loads of amazing people who work in our industry, recruiters like yourself, and obviously candidates who we place. And it's always nice talking about them to you, and catching up with people and hearing how people are doing. Sorry, my phone's buzzing.
Oh, that's all right. We can cut this up out.
But I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I want to ask you.
We've got 5 minutes. You can do like a final question if you've got one hidden there.
My final question to you, because it's something that I find really interesting, when you hire recruitment consultants, because I know lots of different agencies have their what their different things that they're looking for. When you hire a new recruitment consultant for Silver Swan, what is it that you look for in the person that you're hiring for?
Attitude, not even experience. It's very rare that I'll employ someone that's got recruitment experience. I think probably 10% of my staff have any kind of recruitment experience. I actually actively avoid it, because if you've got recruitment I don't know why, only because it's just worked very well for me in the past. First and foremost, I use recruitment agencies for my recruitment, which I think it means that I practice what I preach, in that there are massive benefits to using a recruitment agency. I am specialised. If I wanted a house manager, I'd be able to do it myself. But no one looking at my website is looking for a recruitment consultant position. They're looking for a domestic staff position. So I therefore go to specialist agencies that are specialists in finding recruitment consultants to find my recruitment consultants. They're called rec to rec agencies.
Yeah, rec to rec, sure. Yeah, I've worked with it. Worked with a few.
And I like to tell my clients that I also use recruitment agencies, because I don't want to put an advert on Reed, trawl through 2,000 applicants. I just want on a Friday afternoon to interview 3 people, pick one. So I definitely appreciate the benefits of using and paying for an agency service. But what do I look for? I look for somebody that is, I do like people that have knowledge of the industries. So they've either experienced the yachting industry, or experienced the shell industry, or experienced the private household industry. They need to sort of get our world. That's more important than recruitment experience. I can teach someone how to recruit. Recruiting is not that difficult. What's difficult is finding someone to recruit the right way, and to be moldable and to fit with the team. We've got such a lovely culture at Silver Swan. I think everybody that works for us, I hand on heart can say they all absolutely love their job. And it's not even so much about the actual recruitment, it's the people they work with, and some of the roles they work on, the clients they work with, the candidates. So what I look for is someone that's going to fit in the team first and foremost. Are they going to fit with the team?
Culture.
Are they going to respect the other people they work with? Are they going to have the same work ethic? Are they going to put 110% in for the good of the company? Then I want to look at how well do they know the sector or sectors that we work in, and how much am I going to have to teach on that, or do they get it already? And then it's really important for me to know how trainable or moldable they're going to be. Can I turn them into the consultant I need them to be? But if someone applies that's been working in another agency for the last 20 years, they're the wrong person for me. I like to give, as we touched on earlier, giving people the opportunity to get into the industry. I like to give people the opportunity who want to come and recruit in our sector. They know the sector, they like the sector. I like to give the newbies the chance and then train them all up my way. And then we all sort of work the same way. But yeah, attitude, work ethic, team fit, that for me is more important than prior experience.
Sure. I think that answers all my questions, Philippa. So thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's always nice chatting to you.
Yeah.
We always have a good laugh. There's always, you have to, I think, to work in this industry, it's good to have a good sense of humour.
Yeah.
I was saying to someone in my team today that, you know, you think you've heard it all when you've worked in our industry, but you never have.
No, honestly, we could write books.
And yeah, definitely. And you should keep note down any crazy things you hear. I always think I should be keeping a list, but I never have. But it's been lovely chatting to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's been nice. Well, as I said before, it's nice talking to other recruiters. I've not had a recruiter on for a while, so it's nice to have another recruiter on to sort of give your perspective on the last 18 months, and also where the current market is for you. Just for those listening can get a bit of a feel for sort of like what's going on at the moment. And as I say, always nice to talk to you. We've chatted before, we'll chat again when we have to go for wine. But also nice to also nice to ask me a few questions as well. It's very easy as a host to stay behind the screen a little bit and just talk to the people. And I'm sure other people have appreciated sort of the questions turning on me for a little bit and finding out a little bit more about me.
Yeah, my team, I know lots of people on my team have listened to your podcast and they've enjoyed them, and I haven't listened to all of them, but I've certainly listened to quite a few of them, and I know people who you've interviewed, and it's a great way of people being able to learn more about our industry. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the whole point of it, really. It was just at the very beginning of the pandemic I started this over a year ago now, and it was we all do the same thing and we all work in the same sector, but we never have the opportunity to talk openly about it because it's all too private and confidential. And I just thought it'd be nice to have a platform, build a community where we can just talk openly and share some stories. So I'm glad that it's appreciated. I'm glad that people still listen. And to everyone listening at home, thanks once again for tuning in. Thanks for giving me your time. If there's there's any feedback or anything you'd like in addition for me to start including on the podcast, please let me know. I'm always open to ideas. Someone recently did a poll on LinkedIn as to what you want to hear more of moving forward, and a lot of people want me to get more employers of staff, so we can get a perspective on those actually recruiting the staff. So I'm definitely going to do that. So our next episode is going to be with the chief of staff who employs hundreds of people, so that'd be quite an interesting insight into the industry.
Oh, wow.
From a different point of
Do you
view.
think you can get an employer? It's difficult, isn't it?
Well, that is
To get an actual employer on the podcast. I'm trying to think if I can think of anyone who I could ask for you who might be willing to be interviewed.
Yeah, it's so
for an actual principal.
Yeah.
But I've got lots of my principals. They wouldn't even do. They don't even want to review me online, even if it's anonymous, because they're so proud. That's the thing with lots of our clients, is they're so private.
And also, why would they? But if anyone listening, oh my god, the ultimate thing, if we can get some principals on and we just talk to them just purely from a staffing point of view, what do they look for when they employ staff? Where do people fall down? What do they look for in an interview? How do they like CVs dressed up? What skills and qualities do people
How can agencies be better?
How can agencies be better? Exactly. Like how can we all become stronger in our roles? How can we all succeed? How can we all move forward? So if any principals want to spare me, we can just do 20 minutes interviews. Anyone listening that has a principal that's chilled and relaxed, I'll buy them lunch. We'll do a quick 20-minute interview and get some employers on. I think we'll struggle with that, to be honest. But other than that, I'm going to start getting on senior members of house. We've had senior house members on here before, but talking about their own stories and their own successes. Instead, I'm going to get chief of staffs, senior estate and house managers who are responsible for the recruitment. And instead of them talking about their own careers, we'll purely talk about the employment side of things, the staffing point side of things. So moving forward, we'll definitely shift the focus of the podcast from staff members talking about their own successes, and instead get senior staff members or principals talking about employment and the interview process, etc., because I think that would be quite useful. So that's the plan. That's the plan. So thanks everyone for listening. If we can help you with your recruitment and help you with your job search, come visit us at Silver Swan or Poppy Lane. I'll give you a shout out. Please come connect. You can connect with me on LinkedIn easily, get in touch, and I hope to speak with you soon. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Cheers everybody. Bye.